Hey, business building warrior, welcome to Silent Sales Machine Radio. We've got a great episode for you today. It's another interview with a successful, proven Amazon course student. If you're not familiar with our show, the bulk of our episodes, most of them are interviews with successful students who've listened to this podcast, they've implemented the ideas, and they've built beautiful businesses and come back and shared their story. Pretty cool. We've got hundreds of those stories since 2016. We've been doing this. Dozens of recent examples of students following the strategies we teach, building beautiful businesses and sharing the details on our show. And today's no exception. Dylan Appleby is going to be our guest. Now, it's audio only today. And once I bring him on the show, the first couple minutes, the audio is a little rough. It gets way better, trust me. He got rid of his earbud, I think, and that improved things dramatically after a couple minutes in. So you just hang in there. If the first couple minutes are a little rough, it's not too bad, but just wanted to give you a heads up on that. So he's had his first $10,000 month. That's a great time to interview our students when they have that first $10,000 sales month. He's got great margins, great profit margins on his business. He's going to share all those details, share the journey, how he got into this. Now, he comes from a woodworking and custom cabinetry background, but he started listening to our podcast on the side, getting inspired, and he was encouraged by those around him. I'm not going to steal his story because we have a lot of fun with that as we kind of unpack his story today. He talks a lot about getting ungated and how he navigated that. He gives us some great Keepa tips as far as how to use the tool that we talk about all the time around here. That's kind of a core foundational piece of filling the underserved shelf space at Amazon's warehouses. He talks a little bit about that. He overcame some physical challenges that I'll let him describe, but I think you're going to be inspired and encouraged by that. And he avoided trying to launch his own private label brand. Very wise. He did his research. For those of you who are just getting to Amazon selling, you may become convinced that launching your own brand is a great starting point. It's actually the highest risk way to launch your journey. And we don't like to see new sellers do that. Well, Dylan navigated that, and he successfully found our community and didn't take those huge risks. Now he has a robust and growing business. I'm just so proud of him. He's a great member of our community. I had a chance to meet him at our most recent conference, invited him onto the show, and he agreed. So we love interviewing people at all stages of their success journey. When they have their first $10,000 month, that's a point of celebration around here. And then we've got plenty of seven-figure sellers doing these exact same strategies and scaling. So you never know what you're going to get when we have an interview on our show, and when it's a guest, it's a success story from the proven Amazon course, and Dylan is no exception. You're going to enjoy this guy's story. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Hey, if you have any questions or any feedback for us about our show, please send them our way. Leave it in the comments if you're on YouTube, or drop us a line. Go to silentjimdotcom. You can leave us a message there. You can also, if you want to get a free half-hour consultation with our team, where we talk about where you are, where you'd like to be, and what the best path is to get there for your business and e-commerce success. Hey, let's have a conversation. No obligation. It's no high pressure. We just want to get to know you, introduce you to the right resources. Maybe it's just free resources is all you need right now, some low-cost resources, or maybe you want to go further, faster, and get into our coaching. Let's talk about it. We'd love to meet you. The way to do that is to go to silentjim.com/book a call, all one word, or just go to silentjim.com and click on coaching. They'll step you to that same form. Got one little freebie for you, and then we're going to jump over and meet Dylan. This is the freebie. If you don't have it yet, Silent Sales Machine is actually a book. It's sold over 1 million copies. It's got thousands of 5-star reviews on Amazon, but that's the old version. The latest version is version 11, and I recorded it, and we're giving it away free. It's been out for a little while now, but it's still 100% up to date and relevant. It's going to help you make really good decisions to move your life and business forward down the best possible path based on where you are now and where you're trying to get. Got very practical advice based on my 24 years of living off of e-commerce income and surrounding myself with other people who are doing the same thing. It's going to keep you steered away from the really bad decisions and steer you towards the best opportunities. If you want that book for free, go to silentjim.com/free11. That's the number 11, free 11, as in version 11. silentjim.com/free11. Go check it out. I think you'll really enjoy that. Let me know what you think of that as well. All right, that's enough announcements for now. Let's jump over and meet Mr. Dylan Appleby. Enjoy. So Dylan, welcome to the podcast. Good to have you, man.
Thanks, Jim. Be here.
Good to have you, buddy. So let's get into your story if you're ready to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard about e-commerce. Thank you to my wife. She probably brought it to me in, the most cliche way ever. And it was a TikTok. So before, I was actually in woodworking and custom cabinetry since about 2015. And, I was kind of getting to that point of, I would go out and do something else. And, I think I was just having a day of frustration, calling the wife couldn't tell you how many times of I'm going to be late today, because that's how that line of work goes sometimes. And I remember just being frustrated, and she went, well, you can always sell on Amazon. And, knowing nothing about it, I go, okay, well, I'll show you the TikTok when you get home. So started doing some digging that way. And, I'm not a TikTok guy, but I ended up getting TikTok, and it was, I'm sure I've heard it on the podcast plenty of times. Somebody saying, hey, here's my numbers. This is, I don't touch any of my inventory, and I'll give you a step-by-step how to do it. Take a screenshot of it. And it's a guy doing wholesale, private label. He's talking about Alibaba, and he's charging a bunch of money for a course. And
right.
Immediately at that point, it's not really sense in my head, because I'm looking at the dollar amount, how much time it's going to take to get there. And, didn't make sense to me at that point. So, but I knew there's something there, because obviously I knew Amazon's number one. So I just started doing a little bit more digging. Fortunately, I had a job where I had my headphones in all day. I've been very big into podcasts, and started digging in the Amazon Sellers podcast, and found a couple other guys before you. And I wish I remember the first one I found, but I remember he kind of broke down, the basics, FBA, FBM, what RAOA was, all that stuff. And then at the end of his episode, he kind of just went into, if you want some other resources and whatnot, I remember him saying, Jim, silent sales radio is what he said. And I had it written down in a notepad I found when we were moving houses. And, at the time, I didn't really think anything of it. I just kept digging on podcast to podcast, what was helpful, what wasn't. And then finally, must have been a week later, I stumbled upon it, silent sales, all on my own. And I went, oh yeah, the first guy was talking about this. And I saved that episode, and it was you on episode 566, top 10 pitfalls new experience e-commerce sellers fall into.
Okay. 566.
And now,
I don't remember that one. That's 400 episodes ago.
Yep. And that was not long before I was in contact with you on Facebook too, and got in the group. But yeah, I think the thing that started to stick out to me the most, you listed the 10 things, and I remember one of them being, starting out. Nobody wants to start out at, the private label. You're sourcing from Alibaba and all that stuff. And I do remember you saying another point after that. You said it was the just in case and the just in time thing.
Yes.
And you said it at a point where I was in my learning process of going, okay, well, he's telling me this just in time. And yeah, from that point on, every single day I was at work, Monday through Friday, I had Silent Sales Machine radio on every single day, just listening to every story, getting every bits and piece I could get. I do have the Proven Amazon course too as well. And, I just did a lot of learning through that point in time. And then I think when we got to about the end of 2023, I ended up losing my job in the cabinet job.
Wow.
And that was kind of like a blessing in disguise. And, at that point in time too, because, looking back on in hindsight, I just me and the way my brain works, I don't think I would have got it off the ground had that not happened. So I think, I gave it a little bit of buffer time there. I was still, getting ready to go. I think we started with about $1,000, and at that point, I just had chosen to, I ended up getting a printer, getting a label printer, just getting all set up for it. I had an LLC at that point. I got all that stuff just getting ready to go. And I mean, I didn't know how my taxes were going to end up that year, and whatnot. So I ended up just basically getting prepared to, January 1st rolls around 2024. That's when I'm going to start moving.
Right.
So, and I guess when I'm looking back, I remember you saying it very early on in the podcast, document the journey, write it down. If you don't have a journal, get a journal. But, I kind of just started doing notes in my phone and whatnot, because that's what I always like to hear too when I'm listening to the podcast, how the trajectory kind of went. So,
yep.
Shortest version I could tell you, sent my first shipment in January 8th, 2024. It was available for sale right around the 16th, 17th, and I had made my first sale January 24th. And from there on out, it's it's been a trip. I love every minute of it.
Really? Oh, that's good to hear. That's unusual. Did you really mean that? Loved every minute? I'm sure there's been challenges you didn't like.
Oh yeah, there's plenty.
But you're in command of your own ship, though, so there's even a joy in those challenges, right? With the right mindset. That's how it was for me the first, I don't know, decade. Nothing could throw me off because I'm like, I don't have to get up early and go get a paycheck working for someone else, helping them meet their dreams. I'm building my own dreams here. So even the challenges were they hit different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know what you're saying there. But all right. So January 2024, a good starting point, and made your first sale that same month. Things have taken off. Describe it, man. Keep going.
Yeah. I mean, from there on out, obviously, there's always a learning curve in the process, especially,
Sure.
when you're learning stuff just in time. And, I remember I'm a very ADHD person. I've been on medication for it since I was about 17, and it's try to manage it as best as I can. But, it's also a learning style that works best for me as well, because, if I'm learning everything just in case, 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to retain any of that. So,
thanks for the transparency. I think it's going to encourage some people.
Oh yeah, and I sure hope it does because it's an everyday struggle. You got to self-regulate yourself and always keep yourself on task as best as you can. And it's hey, if I can do it, I don't see why anybody else can't do it. It takes a little bit to get there, and the frustrations can be a lot too sometimes. But I always tell myself, everything's just a mental hurdle. You got to figure out how to get over it. But I almost wanted to give up at that first shipment because that was that was quite the learning curve, but you got through it. And just, sometimes things take a little bit longer than you anticipate that they will. Yeah, I mean, from there, figuring out what you can and what you can't sell. I think one thing I'd like to point out to other people that are just thinking about getting started or just barely got started, that it is a little frustrating in the beginning to try and figure out what you can and what you can't sell, because you're gated in so many things. Everything, it's kind of looking good when you're looking at Keepa and you go, oh, well, I can't sell it.
But, yet. I always like to say yet.
Yes. Yet. And when it comes to that, I mean, I didn't spend too much time on that. It was just, I think the only thing I did do was I ended up getting ungated for the grocery category. And that was, I mean, I know there are rules and guidelines for getting ungated and stuff is, constantly changing. But I think back then it was just, you just need 10 units of something. But, had I even waited too, I mean, I know you were saying it from the very beginning, don't focus on it too much. Once you start moving some units, things do start to open up. And I think I was right around that. I sold 35, 40 units. And then every single time I was seeing something gated, just hit that request approval and door opened right up. Congratulations.
Automatic ungating. Yeah, you just got to click a button to request. Once Amazon starts to trust you, and more often than not, like you said, Dylan, it's just those gates start falling open. Yeah, phenomenal. Very good. Yeah. So what was the next big milestone for you on this journey? Your first sale January. Like what was another moment of celebration for you? What was another like sales highlight moment for you next on the list?
I think when I scroll through all the notes that I'd written down, I was trying to track, how long it takes from, when you send out the shipment and where it's finally available.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always variable, but I kind of just try and keep it as a guideline of, when it shows up to a warehouse, they're going to transfer it, take it this place, that place. As a rough number, I kind of just try and plan for the future of, it can take anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks before everything's fully settled in its place and
Right.
available for sale.
Right.
So it's a lot easier to plan for that. And I think after that, I started marking, first $100 day. That felt like a big one. I think at the time, I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but it was, when I'm testing units, we did about 5 units at a time. And I just remember them getting checked in, and it was one after the next. I mean, maybe 2 hours maximum, we sold out of 5 units. And I went, oh, that outperformed what I expected it to do. So, hey, let's go back to that store and go get 10 more of those. But yeah, I started to learn a lot about the cycles and the way ASINs kind of perform, and I'm still, you do get a very good basic. I think the course I watched in the beginning was Jimmy Smith's, what is it, 0 to 10,000
Yeah, the replen
and all
strength.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember going through that and just learning everything you need to know about Keepa. I know it gets a little confusing every here and there, but the more ASINs you look at it, becomes easier. And I think one thing I neglected, which would be a good point to stress on, is the fact that Keepa data is a data point at a specific point in time, but it always helps to go back to that Keepa chart too later, because there's been plenty of things where I went, I thought I had a good one here. What's going on? And then you go back and look, and then you once you start finding those things that you weren't seeing in the beginning, that's where it really starts to make more sense. But I mean, yeah, after going through that and testing constantly, I kind of got to the point of, I started tracking. Okay, well, what's the best sales day we had? So once we got over our $100 day, it was the $200 days, the $300 days, and we got to 500, 1,000, and then I was just tracking. Once you kind of start looking at the revenue that's coming in, I was tracking first 1,000 in sales, first 2,000, and I mean, I think I got to about 34, 35,000 in sales, and I kind of went, oh, this is hard to keep track of now. But yeah, after that, the milestones always change, and as they're changing over time, I always just, you got to keep making new goals. And I think the goal I kind of finally made for the end of the year, because you kind of start going up and up and up, and then you kind of hit that point where you don't see as fast, if you're not growing as fast, you're not scaling as fast, and then you kind of go, well, what do I do from here?
Right.
So when I didn't really get to it till about like July, August, where I think it's a good point to stress, if you're not seeing the results that you want or what you're hoping for, you need to ask yourself why, and you need to be open to hearing that answer, because it's hard to get going, and then once you get going, you start going on this trajectory, and feels like everything just happens so fast, and then you just kind of need to stop and slow down and reassess things every here and there. And I mean, for me, the last moment I had with that was right before Q4, and that's where I was fully FBA up until right about September, October, and then I started implementing the FBM into that too.
Okay. Doing some of your own shipping just to keep things moving a little quicker, not having to wait a month to 6 weeks for it to land in a warehouse.
Yeah, and I was hearing a lot of, especially on a lot of the podcasts, everybody who stresses the point of FBM. I'm going to be the next person to say it, that says, the sooner you do it, if you plan on doing it, do it and start it tomorrow. I mean, obviously go through the proven Amazon course on FBM and all that, know what you need to know just in time. And as soon as you implement that, it does provide a lot better balance in things, at least in my experience, it did.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the as you mature as a seller, I don't like to see new sellers start off merchant fulfill because inevitably you'll miss 3 or 4 days worth of shipments and like, oh yeah, well, I'll cancel those orders. No, you just put your whole account at risk.
Oh yeah.
So you've got to really have your routines established before you start doing any merchant fulfill or FBM. We love to see newbies start off only FBA, but then as you mature, you've had a few $1,000 days. That's a mature seller. Yeah, put some FBM in the mix. You've got your systems, processes, routines. You know how to store your inventory where you can retrieve it and ship it quickly if a customer, wants you to send it to them versus sending it all to Amazon, right? So yeah, I love the point that you're making. Merchant fulfilled makes a lot of sense. And some of the very mature sellers do only merchant fulfilled, which, at scale, selling, you're buying 1,000 units at a time of different things, maybe, yeah, starts to make some sense. But yeah, you're kind of figuring these things out in a very organic, methodical way. And you just haven't been doing it that long. I love that, 18 months in or so?
Yeah, just about that. And yeah, as soon as you get I definitely would not suggest it from the very beginning. That's a point I wanted to reiterate is, yeah, once you kind of get the hang of the FBA, FBM is a different learning curve, but the sooner you can implement it, it does make a lot of a difference. But yeah, once you kind of get into that Q4, it's, Q4 gets crazy with it. So I just kind of, the longer I've gone with it, I dial it back a little bit more and I try to focus a little bit more on FBA, but FBM can be a great superpower for sure. But FBA is definitely the way I would like to go. But, if the margins make sense, it never hurts to implement both. But I would definitely say when you have it, just make sure you got those shipping templates in and make it priority. But yeah, as far as, I guess I'm kind of at a point where I don't really know where to go with that.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a couple questions then. What's your best month so far?
It was December of this year. Sorry, last year. That was, I think I posted in the Facebook group too. I woke up December 31st, realizing we hit 10,000 that month. And that was basically the only goal I had set. And I was happy to wake up to that. And I immediately took a screenshot and posted in the Facebook group. I think you sent me a message too. Congratulations. And I think it was a couple of days after that, you asked me to be on the podcast.
Yeah, well, that's a great point to get people on the show. We have plenty of 7-figure sellers we interview people at all different levels. But when someone has their first $10,000 month, there's a lot of things that they've taken care of, that they've got the routines and processes. They're decent at sourcing. They're tracking their numbers. And they've got a story to tell. They've got tips and strategies to share. And the thing I like about it too, Dylan, is if there's someone who's brand new, they're not intimidated by your story. If someone did, $80,000 in a month, a lot of newbies will be like, that just sounds crazy. But the fact is, you're probably starting to figure this out, Dylan, the difference between selling 10,000 a month and selling 100,000 a month, it's, maybe an extra virtual assistant, maybe a little extra software that automates some of the processes. It's not like you're working 10 times harder by any means. You're actually working less because you've developed better systems. So the smoothest this business ever is at scale when you've got other people running it. And your margins will drop a little bit necessarily because you got people and software running the whole thing, but you've got your time, you've got your flexibility. So what are your margins at this point? How are you tracking those well? Do you know how profitable you are?
Yeah, I'm tracking them as best as I can. I will say, from a software standpoint right now, I mean, I do seller board. It does take a little bit for mine to update, but the month of June is actually my second best month since December.
Oh, cool. So this month, what are you going to do this month? We're wrapping it up. Today's the last day for those who aren't listening to this later, probably sometime in July. But today's the last day as we're recording this, last day of June 2022, 2025. So what's June looking like for you?
June, we are currently sitting at about $7,100 for the month.
Nice.
We're at about a 59% ROI at a 20% net margin.
Nice. 20% net. Good job, man.
Yeah, it feels great. And, I don't know if you remember or not, but I did attend the conference and talked to you right at about the end of it. And, you actually invited me on in January, and I kind of, I'll admit I dragged my feet on it. And the end of that conference, I was just giving you a big thank you because you shaped this path for me of it, I knew the idea for selling on Amazon was great, but you kind of put it in a more of a digestible way that most other places I tried to learn from didn't. And I was giving you a thank you for that. And I remember telling you, yeah, I know I need to get on the podcast. You asked me a while ago and you said, do it right now. It takes you 30 seconds to set it up. And, I did it while I was waiting for my lift to go to the airport.
Yeah, I gave you my calendar link, and yeah, I remember that conversation. I have a lot of those kind of chats at these events, man. Always looking out for inspirational stories, but yeah, I remember that. Yeah, you grabbed it right there, same day. Grabbed a slot.
Yeah, and it was definitely necessary, and I wanted to plan it out strategically too. Of like, I haven't implemented everything that I've wanted to since the conference. Some of it's going to take a little bit longer to integrate, but I wanted to have a little bit of a result of, hey, this is where I got it to since I came back from the conference, and I mean, it was a lot better than last month. That's for sure.
That's awesome. So what kind of things are you implementing? What's helping you scale?
Well, as far as right now, the one point I did want to get across too was while I was at the conference, I did sit in yours and Nathan Bailey's session when you guys were just doing the open Q&A.
Right.
And I remember one of the questions somebody asked, they were talking about, I think the point they were just trying to get across was, I've noticed that when I start working on myself, my business starts to do better.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of resonated with me a lot, because obviously I'm ADHD. I try so hard not to get myself off on tangents, but it kind of really made sense in my head of, there's certain things I do need to get in order in my life, to run a successful, profitable business that, will be my full-time income and, supply my family with a little more extra funds. And, I eventually like to get to the point where it's paying my mortgage.
Yeah. Well, that's the trajectory you're on, man, chipping away. So you're still working full time?
Yeah, pretty much for myself. Since I lost my job in the cabinet shop, that was a trade, so that still makes me money. It's just I do it independently now, and
Gotcha.
Lining up things here and there just keep the bills paid. And if everything goes, if things kind of slow down, where I live I live in a massive DoorDash hotspot. So that's kind of like why not? It's right there.
Yeah, that's a fallback. Yeah, fallback. I love it. So you're basically just hustling, man, while you're building your dreams, and the trajectory you're on, having these $10,000 months, learning the systems, getting more efficient, scaling. It's going to start to, if it already hasn't, opened up many doors for you, besides just scaling the business model you're doing, which there's plenty of people who, 7-figure businesses doing exactly what you're doing. Perhaps one of the best examples is Kang, $3 million business, one virtual assistant, 3P Mercury software, one warehouse worker, right? Like that can be done. But what's going to start happening to you, Dylan, is other opportunities as well, such as helping a brand get on Amazon. Maybe one of the brands that you were selling that decided they're going to get grumpy and trying to kick sellers off and they're struggling with it. You can reach out to them and say, hey, I notice you guys are kind of trying to take more control of your Amazon account. I can help. I've been doing this a while. You just with confidence, approach them, hear them out, get them on a Zoom, have a conversation. You're used to dealing with customers. You got your own business now doing, the what you said, woodworking. What do you do? What's the gig there?
Woodworking, custom cabinetry. So,
Custom.
I mean,
Yeah. Custom
yeah,
work. You're in people's houses talking to people like you're comfortable with all it. Some people just, they're scared to death to talk to people. You don't have that problem. You have to do it for a living now, right?
oh yeah,
You can do great. And I love that kind of flexible flow of, hey, when there's nothing to do, man, flip on the DoorDash app, go make a couple $100 hustling. But
mm-hmm.
you've got these two things that are brewing. And I think the Amazon e-commerce thing is going to take the lead very soon. But I'm in admiration, man. You're in hustle mode. You're doing what it takes. I can hear in your voice. We're just doing audio only today, so I'm not able to see you, but I can hear in your voice. There's an air of confidence, of optimism, an abundance mindset. Like, yeah, there's plenty of opportunity ahead of me. I love it. I love your demeanor. Without seeing you, it comes through loud and clear. I got off a call right before this one with someone who was kind of bummed. And that's the biggest problem they have was their mindset. And I was trying to convince them, like, you're doing the right things. You've got all this, but your mindset, you're so skeptical of all your decisions, and you don't have enough margin in your life to do this the right way. Meaning, they've got their spouse isn't on board, and they're always doubting their own decisions. That really works against you. But I'm not hearing that from you, Dylan. So congratulations, man. You've got to. I like to say this sometimes. If you were a stock, I'd be buying some right now, man. Yeah, I think you're a great investment. I'm excited to see where you're going.
Well, thank you. I definitely appreciate it, and I I have to give you some sort of credit for it. It does take a lot for me to do it as well, but you found you just in time and paid attention to the things you try to teach everybody. So yeah, it got me to where I am now, and I can't say I don't have any of that doubt. I've been there plenty of times.
Of course,
it does come with the territory.
any business, any business.
Yeah, and I mean it's just it's like I was trying to say before. Everything is just a mental hurdle. You got to figure out how to get over it. But the one thing I never doubted from the beginning, since my wife brought it to me, just as an idea, I always kind of just had this blind faith of like, well, it's Amazon. Amazon's number one. There's no way that it can't work, but it's up to me to get it there.
Right.
And I remember, talking to her. The more I started doing research about it, after I got off the, private label, I'm not going to start there. And then once I started thinking, in the aspect of retail and doing all that stuff, I kind of brought it back to her like, okay, well, you weren't wrong with this idea. This idea is going somewhere, but I just, I know it's going to take a little time investment to get it there. At the time I'd done it, we had just had our first child together. So, I'm juggling that. I was still juggling a full-time job. And, I remember bringing her this idea of just, I found a way to make it work, found a podcast that I listened to. They also have a proven Amazon course. It's very low cost. I was feeling pretty down at that point because I don't have a whole lot of time to invest in this right now, but I don't know if I know how to get it there. It's going to take a decent amount of time to get it there. I just don't know if it's worth that time to get it there. And, I still give her the credit of, it's one of the nicest things she's ever said to me to this day. She just looked at me and said, you're smart enough to figure this out. And
That's awesome. I love it. You know what you have there, besides a, precious woman in your life, which is a tremendous gift from God. But you have what I call relationship margin, which is huge. It's huge. The difference, if you took your exact scenario right now, everything being exactly the same, but she was saying things like, yeah, here we go again. Another big idea. When's this one going to flop? Right? If she was, that would probably be enough to have derailed you. So
yeah,
some people can overcome that, but a lot of us can't. A supportive spouse, whether it's the husband or the wife, supporting you in your journey and saying, affirmative things, it's huge. I think especially for us as guys, it's just huge. And if there's any wives listening, you have such tremendous power that you don't realize. I mean, I just heard you say, Dylan, probably one of the nicest things she's ever said to you. I'm sure you guys have shared some great, sweet moments. That's one of the nicest things she's ever said. There's a lot of power in believing in your man, ladies. There is so much power there. Even if you
Oh,
don't really believe it, say it and watch what lights up inside of him. Yeah, I love it, Dylan. So you've got relationship margin in spades. You got a supportive woman by your side, man. That's beautiful. I love it.
yeah. And I think if she would have said, she would have said anything different in that same conversation, I think it would have had a completely different trajectory. But I did want to say too, I sat in your wife's session
Oh,
in
cool.
Orlando, and I was in the one you popped in the back and took a couple pictures real quick, and she
And
was
she
sitting there
kicked
going,
me out.
Jim, get out, Jim.
Yeah.
You're never in here.
Yeah, that's the one session I'm not allowed to attend because she's like, if someone has questions about you, I just want to be able to answer them and not have to worry about if you're in there or not. I'm like, all right, that sounds great.
Yeah, and she had a great session there.
I love it.
Be sure that she knows that she got that compliment, because it
I will
was,
tell her for sure.
yeah, it was a very, very eye-opening thing too. And yeah, she does stress the fact that, we all have our frustrations, and, it can be a little bit difficult to, get something off the ground. But I think the point if I remember correctly, one of her points for her was like, when you guys had a nest egg, is where it kind of, I'm not trying to tell your story or anything, but I feel like that's kind of where she started to get comfortable with it. And, you just need those, when you have the support from a spouse like that, it can change the whole business entirely.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to do it as a team. It's one of the conversations I like to have with couples is, when are we ready to go full time? When are we ready to make the leap and jump into this? Right. Dave Ramsey says, make sure the boat is close enough to the shore before you go jumping. So what that means is you've got to have enough in reserve to make the most conservative of the two, husband, wife, make the most conservative comfortable. So the question is, how many months reserved to pay all of our bills do we need to have in the bank before we make the leap? And the wife might say 6 months, and the husband might say 8 months. Okay, we're going with 8 months because we don't want anyone nervous, afraid, especially if the wife has the higher number. You want to go with the highest number. All right, we got to get 8 months reserve, and I'm going to hustle, and I'm going to do cabinetry, and until we've got 8 months in the bank, I'm going to stick with it. But at the point we've got that, I'm going to go ahead and flip the switch. Now, the nice thing about the flexibility of this business model, though, is, Dylan, you really can, part-time, 15, 20-hour a week effort, you can scale this thing. There's plenty of people who never put more time than that into it. You're not going to go as far as fast as if you were putting more time in, obviously. But you can keep your income streams diversified for quite some time and continue to scale this thing. 20 hours a week or so, there's no reason you can't get this thing to $30,000, $50,000, $60,000 a month with that kind of commitment. Using a virtual assistant, using the right software, very doable. But that's all in time, man. Just one step at a time, baby steps in the right direction, making good, solid decisions. Yeah, you're on a great trajectory.
Well, thank you. It's starting to feel great at all times.
That's awesome. Yeah, you made that comment before. Yeah, keep building your relationship network too. That's the other tip I'd give you for sure, man. I'm not sure how engaged you are with that, but form a mastermind, hang out with other people on Zoom, meet once a week and just swap ideas. Here's what's working, here's what isn't, that sort of thing. At the point that it makes sense for you financially, getting a coach would be a huge boost. Make sure it's a comfortable investment for you to do so. But working with one of the most successful people in our community one-on-one as a mentor and all the other benefits you get with it, it's worth looking into. But I'm not pressuring you into that, but at the point where it makes sense, that would help you go a lot further, a lot faster. You're very well positioned for it. You sound very coachable as well. So I think it'd go great for you. But well, was there anything else you were hoping to share with the listeners today, or anything else on your mind? Anything you're wanting to ask me before we start to wrap this one up?
Not too much right off the top of my head. I mean, there was one point I did want to stress of everybody has a different journey with it, and everybody has a different trajectory. And, I know very early on, what I liked about the podcast very early on was you structure it in a way where you kind of meet people where they're at, where it's, regardless of where anybody is in their journey, there's always some sort of podcast or some sort of material that is tailored to you and where you're at, because a lot of what was very off-putting in the very beginning when I'm trying to learn stuff is, I'm hearing things from 7, 8 figure sellers and, it's not really resonating with me because I'm not there yet, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out how do you get it there? Well, don't focus on the how. It's not always in about the how, I forget hows all the time, but I remember why. I remember why I started this, and it was because I wanted to be financially independent. I wanted the time with my family and the time with my daughter. And, it's just made sense. And before I get way too far off on a tangent, I just wanted to say that, basically where I'm at and where it took me to get to in about, like you said, 18 months, I don't want that to discourage people and thinking that you can't get there sooner, because you definitely can. But, it's just that everybody has a different journey with it. And, the way I set it up and made it in my life was, I do a lot of juggling, even still to this day. I'm juggling this, juggling that, juggling side jobs, DoorDash, and, being at home with my family. And, there's always there isn't just one way to do it.
Right.
Just the way that I did it was, I'm growing at a slower pace, but doesn't mean you can't get there sooner than I did, but
well
it's learn as you go.
Yeah, well said. We've had people, month 2 do $30,000, but they jumped in with both feet. They had some capital to work with. They took maybe some bigger risks than I would have taken when I was new, but off they went, right? And then we have other people, Dylan, who bought the Proven Amazon course 3 years ago and haven't sent in a shipment yet, but they're still getting ready to get ready. And,
Yep.
So I would put you in the take action, make it happen, consistent. I would much rather see slow and steady effort in the right direction versus someone who just rockets out and then takes a couple months off and then rockets back into this whole thing and takes a few months off. Like that to me is just a scary pattern. The steady consistency, discipline is the key, man, to everything. You sound like a disciplined guy. I can just tell. You sound like a disciplined guy. At least, you've overcome your ADHD to the point where you're characterized by discipline. You're the kind of guy that shows up on time, right? You're the kind of guy that gets up on time. So you've got a bright future ahead of you applying those skill sets to these business models. I'm excited for you, man.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm 100% disciplined in that sense, but
Well, enough to have a successful business, which puts you ahead of 90% of the people out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. And that's, I think it is important to say, the things that you neglect the most in your business is the things that you should start paying more attention to.
Yeah.
But especially like establishing those systems too, because that, I feel like it was kind of, I was at the conference. I was just, I need to get better with my scheduling. I need to get better with, getting other things done as well. Just make a schedule, do something that works for you. And I know there's a lot of people implementing, this, that, the other thing. There's a lot of buzz around the AI stuff too, but trying to remember which guy it was. Maybe you know better than I do. The one who had the AI session, but he was talking about Reclaim AI, which is basically helping with scheduling. And I go, that's where I could start with all of this. It's just helping with the schedule here and making sure I'm getting stuff done. Block time for this, block time for that, block time for sourcing.
Yes. Yes. Well, you're building a beautiful business, man. You're doing a great job, and it's an honor getting to know you a little bit today. And if I can be of any service to you at all, you've got my text now. I was texting you before the show. Feel free to reach out. But yeah, I'm proud of you, man. It's an honor. You inspired and encouraged me. I've been doing this 25 years, 24 full time, and you've encouraged me today, man, with your diligence and the trajectory and great insights and what you've overcome. Thank you for being transparent as well about the ADHD challenge. I think there's a lot of people out there that have that challenge and they're having to deal with it. So you're an encouragement and inspiration to them as well.
Yeah, I sure hope so. Because some days it can definitely be a struggle. But yeah, it's like I said before. If I can do it, there's no reason why other people can't. But
excellent. Well, Dylan, I appreciate you, man. God bless you, my friend.
And I appreciate you too. And again, thank you. That's the only thing I want to give people their flowers while they're still here.
That's a great way to live, man. Absolutely. And I know exactly what you mean by that. Yeah. Most dudes, the only time they get flowers is when they're dead. So, yeah.
I just heard that phrase yesterday.
Did you? Yeah. Give credit where it's due, man. And life is short. Yeah, just again, man, you've got a great heart. It just shines through. Can't wait to see where you are a year and 5 years from now. All right, brother. Well, let me talk to the listeners for just a second, Dylan, those who hung out with us today and heard this episode, okay? If you enjoyed what you heard today as Dylan and I were discussing his business, and maybe this is one of the first episodes you've ever heard of our show, I've got some excellent news for you. Scroll back in time and you're going to hear not just dozens, but hundreds of stories like this of people who have come into our community, listened to our podcast, implemented what they've learned, built beautiful businesses, and then come back and told their story. It's a flywheel of great information, encouragement, inspiration, equipping you to succeed. And as Dylan said so well today, we love just-in-time education around here, which means we're going to give you what you need next for the next step of your journey. We're not going to just dump loads of information on you and let you sort it out over time, hoping you learn what you need for what you might encounter someday. We don't do that here. Step by step, we've really broken this down, especially the first 50 steps you're going to take as a new seller on Amazon. We've got it mapped out, and we'd love to help you. That's what the Proven Amazon course is. So check it out if you're not familiar with it. ProvenAmazonCourse.com is the website. That's enough of a commercial. Hey, Dylan, appreciate you, man. It was great hanging out with you today. And seriously, hit me up if you need anything at all. Okay, brother?
I definitely will.
All right, Dylan.
We'll be in touch.
God bless you, man. And for the listeners who hung out with us today, thanks again for being the best part of our show. We'll have another great episode for you very soon.